Let's take an in-depth look at how the grenade item is set up. For this video, I'm assuming that you've already seen the videos on setting up your project and scene, creating a new first or third person character, adding new item types, as well as the videos on the first or third person item creation. So assuming you've seen those videos, we can go ahead and get started. This video is going to build upon them, so you definitely want to see those videos first. Let's go ahead and open up the item manager, and the name of the item that we want to create is called My Grenade, and the item definition will be the My Grenade item type, and this item type I created earlier. So now let's go ahead and drag the Nolan character in. The animator ID will be 41. This value is explained in depth on how I get it in the first and third person the first and third person item videos, so make sure you've seen those videos first. Let's go to the first person section, and the first person base is the first person arm, so that looks good. The visible item is the frag grenade model, so I'll just drag that model in. The item parent is the items game object, which is underneath the right hand, so that looks good. There is no animator controller. And we do want to add a third person item, and the visible item will be that same frag grenade model. It will be in the character's right hand with no animator controller. And the action type will be grenade item. So now we can go ahead and hit build. And I'll just drag that away so we can hit play. And let's see what happens. We're probably going to get an error. Yeah, so we got an error saying that a thrown object must be assigned to the My Grenade game object. And then in the game view, we can also see that the grenade is not positioned properly. So let's go ahead and fix that error first, and we can do so by clicking on your grenade item and scrolling down to the grenade item component, and we should see this red error right here saying that a thrown object must be specified. So let's go ahead and specify that by going to the object manager, and we'll create a new thrown object. The name will be grenade, and the type will be grenade. The game object will be the model file that we used earlier. So let's go ahead and find that again, and we'll just drag that in, hit build, and we'll make sure we're saving in the right spot, and it should be right here, so that looks good. Now we'll go ahead and assign that game object reference. And let's just drag that in. So we should be good now in terms of not getting any more errors. So let's go ahead and hit play. So no more errors, so that's good. But we still have that positioning problem, which makes sense since we didn't adjust that at all. And we can adjust this using the standard transform modification tool. So we'll go ahead and just rotate it and position it correctly. I've actually already positioned it from the demo scene, so I can just paste these component values and it should be positioned correctly. So I'm going to do that for both first and third person. So let me paste that. So that is for first person, and let me click on the third person one. And when I paste it, let's go ahead and now hit play, and I'm confident it'll be in the right position. So that looks good in first, and let's see, let's go, yep, third person looks good as well. Let's go ahead and let's look at first person view. Oh, you can see I only have one grenade right now. Well, I want more than one grenade. So let's go ahead and say we want 10 grenades to the default loadout. So now when I'm in first person view and I throw the grenade, you'll notice, watch the grenade and watch the character's hand. You'll notice that as I'm throwing the grenade, it's hard to see, but the grenade, or the hand pops in front of the grenade as I'm throwing it. And the reason for this is because the grenade is on the ignore raycast layer, I think, or the visible or visual effect layer. And the hands are using the standard render pipeline, which means that it uses a stacked camera approach. So the hands are on the overlay layer. And so basically the grenade is rendering before the hands, and so then the hands are positioned in front of the grenade. Well, we can change that by changing the layer that the grenade starts out on when it gets thrown. So let's go ahead and change that under the grenade item. We can see, okay, so the start layer is the ignore raycast layer. So this start layer, if we were only in a first person perspective, we could just change this directly to the overlay layer and then it would work. But because we're switching between first and third person perspectives, we want to make sure that we switch the starting layer depending on the perspective. And an easy way to do that is to use the state system. So when I'm in first person, it will set the starting layer to overlay, but when I'm in third person, the starting layer will be the ignore raycast layer. And we can do that by using this preset that was already created. And let me go ahead and add that, and then I'm going to name this first person. If you haven't watched the state system video, I highly recommend that you do so because the state system is extremely useful. So let's go ahead and look at this preset to see what it's actually doing. And you can see it changes the start layer to 29 when the first person perspective is enabled. And if we go back to that drop down, let's see, where is it? It's right here. We can see that 29 is the overlay layer. So that matches. So now when I'm in first person view, we should see that field update to the overlay layer. And you can see that it does in the view, or in the inspector on the right. Now when I'm in third person, it switches to the ignore raycast. So what the grenade is actually doing is when it's being thrown, it's spawning that thrown object prefab. And that prefab is the one that gets the layer assigned. So that's the whole reason why the grenade was going behind the character's hand. So now when I throw it, we should see that the grenade, or that the hand does not go in front of the grenade. So that looks a whole lot better. All right, if you remember the demo scene, when I'm aiming, there is a little trajectory arch showing you the location that the grenade is going to land in and what path it's going to follow. Well, when I hit play, you'll notice that that arch doesn't exist. And let's go ahead and add that because it's a nice little polish feature. So we can do that by enabling, where is it, show trajectory on aim, and we enable that, and it says a trajectory object must be added to the item. So let's go ahead and add that trajectory object. And then this trajectory object is going to use a line renderer, so we will add that as well. And let's go ahead and change some of these line renderer properties just because I don't need them. We want to set the material to that frag grenade trajectory. We are going to, you can see a preview of it right here, but let's go ahead and change the size to 0 because we don't want to see that at the start. We can change some of these shadow settings. Let's also make it a little bit smaller. All right, so now that that is set up, now when I start aiming, I should see the path that the grenade is going to follow. So yeah, looks good in first and third. So we got that working. The next thing that I want to get working is as I'm aiming or as I'm throwing it, actually, yeah, as I'm throwing it, you'll notice that the character does a little pin animation. Look in the scene view. He does a pin removal animation, and when it's hard to see as he's actually playing it, but we want the pin to be removed, and right now it's not being removed. So let's go ahead and specify the objects or the correct references so that that pin can be removed. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to go back to the grenade, and let's go back to the grenade item. And then under, let's see, animate pin removal, we want to make sure that is selected, and that is, so that's good. Let's go to the, where is it, right here. So this pin attachment location specifies the location that the pin should be attached to when it's removed. And we want the pin to be attached to the character's left hand. So when I'm in third person, I want the pin to start to be attached to the character's left hand. So I'm going to drag that in, and I'm going to do something similar for first person. And let me find the character's left hand. And I'll drag that in for first person. So that is set up, but now we need to specify the game object for the actual pin. And we do that under this grenade prefab. Under the grenade component, we can see that there's a little pin reference, and we'll just go ahead and drag that in. So now when I hit play, it's going to be tough to see, but we'll be able to see that the pin is removed. So yeah, that looks a lot better. So that's set up for throwing it. Now let's go ahead and set up for when, actually let me hit play again. And when I throw this grenade, we'll see that the grenade doesn't really do anything. It just disappears after 5 seconds. The reason for that is because of the value set on this grenade component. So let's go ahead and change some of those values. The first thing that we want to change is the lifespan. We'll make it a little shorter. We'll say 2. And then we also want to have it spawn an explosion when the grenade is destroyed. So let's go ahead and spawn, or specify the explosion that should spawn. So now when the grenade is destroyed after 2 seconds, it will spawn this explosion prefab. If you look at this in the scene view, you can also see that the collider on the grenade is pretty big. So let's go ahead and change that a bit. So this looks a lot better. Actually, that still looks kind of big. So yeah, there we go. Now this collider fits the shape of the grenade much better. So now when we hit play, we should see an explosion, and your grenade is set up. Perfect. And that's how you set up a grenade with an explosion at the end.